You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Hey, it's getting near the end of June, the end of Q2, the middle of the year. And this is the time where the summer's coming. The good part about that is you probably get some vacation. The bad part of it, everyone else has got some vacation. And it's hard to get stuff done. It's hard to close deals. It's hard to build pipeline. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit today, not just directly about the summer, but what's working today and what isn't working today. I got my buddy Tim on today, and I also want to make sure you're aware of a new ebook that two of my partners have teamed together on. Discoverorg.com and Gong.io have teamed up once again to find out how do you move sales performance? How do you get, when you're in that B player slump to get back up to becoming an A player, or if you're a B player and you want to become an A player. And we're going to be talking about that on the show today as well. But the ebook gives you a nice document to look at it, references, some science behind it, some data, also based off of their products where you get all the data for you. You don't have to do all that research. Discover.org has it already done for you. No need for that information concierge or virtual assistant. If you have them, you have all that organizational charts, social information, contact information, all available to you. Also, make sure you listen to the end where I'll talk about the update on the course. Office hours is just cranking. We had a great session last week, a good hour of digging into the map to money and finding out the issues. And everyone's kind of realizing sales is a prevention profession. It's not a repair. Everyone treats it as repair. How do you react? You got to proact in sales. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get into it with my buddy Tim, and make sure you're checking out everything at B2Brevenue.com. You get my free ebook there on how companies make product selections. Doesn't matter how you sell if you don't know how they make product selections. Let's get into the interview. Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
So, Brian, I've been doing this for almost 3 decades. I was a corporate sales executive for almost 18 years and had the opportunity back in 2000 to kind of venture out on my own. And since 2000, I've been an independent sales practitioner, helping sales organizations learn how to, find, win, and keep customers for life.
And what are you passionate about? What part of the sales process is your bag?
I'm passionate about all things sales because I think it's such a misunderstood craft. But I probably do the most work, Brian, in helping sales teams really understand what proper prospecting looks like, and also helping them put together and deliver better presentations.
And I bet you've seen a little bit of change in your career, huh?
Yeah. It's yes and no. It's kind of funny, Brian, because the more things change, the more they stay the same. So, right, when I first started prospecting back in 1980 something, right, there was no internet, there was no email. The customer depended on the sales rep for all the information. They were much more willing to see you because they had to see you. So today, the playing field, quite frankly, is leveled out. And if anything, I think salespeople have to really be on top of their game, because if you don't get it right the first time, you're not getting invited back for the second time.
Yeah. And do you see companies doing the right thing, or do you see them kind of doing this division of labor gone mad?
I don't know that I see many companies doing the right thing. And I think, because I stay very busy. And I think part of that, quite frankly, is I don't know that companies know what the right thing is. Yeah. I think we've thrown a lot of stuff over the transom thinking it's going to work, but truth be known, it doesn't always work.
And when you say doesn't work, what do you see working better than other things?
Well, let me give you a for instance. When in the area of prospecting, Brian, I see so many salespeople today that have really kind of got caught up in the technology trap. So what that looks like is I try to approach you, Brian. I think it would make sense for you and I to have an initial, 15-minute conversation. And what I do, or what most salespeople do today, is they put you, Brian, on the radar screen, and then they just bury you. And they bury you with email, and they bury you with voicemail. Here's the deal. We all get way too many emails, and we all get way too many voicemails. So part of my methodology, part of my thinking is, if you want to get noticed, you got to kind of get off the radar. And so my point would be, Brian, if I sent you a note card, or if I sent you a postcard, or if I sent you a small gift in the mail, you'd probably be much more receptive to having a conversation with me versus me sending you the same email over and over and over again and just kind of recycling the same message. So I think we've taken technology and we've used it as this big crutch. And some guys even try to hide behind it, right? It's kind of hard to get rejected in an email. Doesn't really hurt your feelings. And I think we kind of have to get back to old school and actually, press in the flesh and doing things in such a way that people pay attention to us.
Yeah, because I get the sense that we as human beings haven't progressed or evolved as fast as the technology has. Is that your sense?
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that, and I don't know that we will. I think
in our lifetime, at least.
I mean, I think there are certain things. If we go back to the caveman, I think the caveman wanted to feel respected. He wanted to feel heard. He wanted people to listen to him, and I think some of those primate kind of emotions still exist today. Yeah. And so, although the technology has changed, people are still people, and whether you're the guy in the shipping dock or whether you're the guy in the C-suite, you're still a human being. You still have certain fundamental emotional wants and needs and desires. You just kind of have to figure out a way to meet those. And doing it electronically is not always the right answer.
Yeah, because most of those messages that I see, most of the voicemails I see, and somebody's been haunting me, changing their number, trying to get me on the phone. And clearly, I put it to voicemail, and they don't really leave a voicemail. They don't send an email, but they keep changing their number. I think that we're forgetting that it's a person at the other end. Do you think they or us as salespeople think it's their job to buy just because it's our job to sell?
I think there are those out there that have that mindset. I think it's a very dangerous mindset.
Yeah.
Because it's not. I mean, our customers don't wake up thinking about us.
No, they don't.
We wake up thinking about our customers. And so, again, it's not really a level playing field. And so I got to figure out a way to get my message in front of you. I got to figure out a way to get you to understand that a 10 or 15 minute initial conversation with me won't be a waste of time. I've got to get in there. I've got to ask the right kinds of questions. I can't pitch prematurely. I've got to bring ideas. I've got to bring solutions, and on and on and on and on and on. And I just don't know that there's a shortcut to getting that done.
And when you go into a new client, what does their typical pattern look like? Is it that 16-touch cadence with the breakup email, with the alligator or kidnapping, or is it just a number of calls per day, KPI based? What's your vantage point?
So I kind of see two different extremes, and I see stuff in between. But one extreme is I see organizations that have no idea what they're doing from a follow-up standpoint. Yeah. So every rep has their own process or lack thereof. And so some reps will follow up once or twice. Some reps will follow up. Some reps are very proud to tell you, well, I never give up, which I find to be fascinating. There's 7 billion people on the planet. I think at some point in time it's best to disengage. But if you think going on forever is good, then good for you. So that's one extreme. The other extreme, Brian, is I see organizations that have embraced all this technology, and they're doing, the 16-step cadence, but it's so mechanized. It's so there's not a human being there, and so neither one of those approaches I think are very effective.
And do you have a struggle trying to convince the manager that they need to open their mind up? Because, that did work at one time in certain cases for somebody. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it.
Right.
I see a lot of things out there, the Basho emails. I go, that's 20 years old.
Yeah.
That is not a new approach. That's, more personalized. And I think what happens, and you can give me some feedback, is the manager kind of enforces what worked for them at the company they worked at when they were successful.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on. I think in order for me to be successful, I just got to try to get the sales executives to think like buyers and not think like sales executives. And
how do you do that?
Well, I think you just, you got to kind of take them back to their happy place. I mean, if you as an individual were considering a purchase, and all of us, we talked about this yesterday. I did a workshop yesterday in Nashville. And if you talk to a rep, or if a rep talked to you, and you're considering a purchase, and then later that afternoon you got an email, and then the next morning you get an email, and then tomorrow afternoon you get an email, and the day after that you got an email, and then you start getting phone calls, you would be like, whoa, dude, tap the brakes. I mean, when we take ourselves out of the role of sales professional and we put ourselves into the role of buyer, it's like, well, wait a minute, as a buyer, I want to be respected. I want you to understand my problem. I want you to kind of go at my cadence and not force your cadence on me. I don't want to be part of your selling process. I want you to be part of my buying process. And so I don't think it's a huge sale. I think it's just kind of taking the time to tap the brakes and think about how do you want to be treated when you're on the other side of the desk.
And a lot of companies have figured that out. It took them a long time. And they actually have their reps go through the training and the usage of the product before they get on the phone or on the keyboard as a way of empathizing with the client and understanding what they're going into, especially on the cold outreach, which is very different than the warm inbound.
Right.
And once you can kind of understand what the day in the life of your client or your prospect is, you can kind of get a sense of what they care about, what their priorities are, because it's not the features and functions of your product. It's the outcomes that they're looking to get.
And that seems so Captain Obvious, but there's so many organizations, Brian, that just don't get that. I mean, a week doesn't go by that I don't get a phone call as a small business owner that somebody doesn't want to show me their widget. Hey, would you be willing to jump on, a quick 20-minute screen share? I'd love to show you some of our new features. I'd love to show you, our new CRM. I'd love to show you our new automation tool. And it's like, why in the world would I do that? You have no idea who I am, what I do, what my challenges are, what my concerns are, what direction I'm trying to head into. So it's, I guess if salespeople would start making common sense, common practice, I'd be out of a job.
Yeah. And you don't see it getting easier, do you?
No, I don't. I don't know that I don't think it's getting easier, but I also don't think it's getting harder. I think it kind of.
I think the rise of the smart, emotionally intelligent sales rep will start to rise. And I think what muddies the waters is that the managers tend to come from a successful brand. And I've seen this so many times because I did mostly startups. And they would come in from a successful company and then they'd look around, they go, where are the leads? And they go, well, we got a bunch of contacts about this listicle that marketing put out, or a bunch of people came by to get the free iPad at the trade show. And those aren't leads, right? They're contacts. They're people who happen to be in the proximity or interested in the listicle.
Yeah.
Which is very different than the old days where you put an ad in a periodical that they filled out a bingo card for to get the free, paper book. It's very different.
No. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah. And so do you think we're doing the right thing by setting this thing up, this sales development rep with people who have little to no experience with sales? Or is it experience, or is it really expertise that we have to kind of convert?
Wow, that's probably a question beyond my pay grade.
Come on, man.
I love what SDRs do, and I think that's a valuable role. But I would tell you there are some organizations that it kind of starts to feel a little bit like, let's put a bunch of guys in a boiler room and let's just start pounding phones. Surely we can find a live one, and I don't want to diss that, although I already did. You can do that. You can sell that way. You can take the same tireless message and recycle it over and over and over again, and eventually you'll find somebody willing to buy. I tend to have a lot more fun taking higher percentage shots. So in other words, you could sit up in the tree all day long and just fire at the horizon, and eventually an elephant might happen to walk into the path of a bullet. That's one way of doing it. I'd rather know where my elephants are, understand their grazing patterns, understand their migration patterns, understand the proper time of the year. And to me, the hunt is what's fun. It's knowing that, hey, listen, I'm setting myself up to be incredibly successful here. The guys that just bang those phones all day long, I can't do that. That just I'd rather mow grass.
But a lot of people glorify that as macho or hustle and grind, and I think we need to differentiate what hard work is and what smart work is. Because what you just described was smart work. Was really
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's guys out there that is the macho thing, and I don't have to name names because you and most of the people listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about. But there are those out there that take the approach of push, and for a certain percentage of the population, that's okay. My experience is most people are very uncomfortable with that. They don't want to feel like they're being pushed. It's not a macho thing. It's more of a one-to-one kind of communication, more of a one-to-one kind of connection.
And you have to be cognizant of exactly what's going on, like in Europe now with GDPR. I mean, that came about because of bad behavior by marketers and sales. That didn't come about just because of timing. It was, why do we have caller ID? Why do we have voicemail? Why do we have all these screening and spam blockers?
Yep.
And I don't see management, only when they're in really pain. And I think probably you get called in at that point, right? I'm not sure you get that many clients that call you in when they're doing 300% of their number.
Well, no. But to be honest with you, Brian, it's not like I get called in a lot. I stay busy, but part of the reason I stay busy is part of my job is to make sure the emperor understands they don't have on any clothes.
Yeah. And how do you do that before the tide goes out?
Well, I think it's the hardest part is so in my little part of the universe, the hardest part is I've got to get them to pay attention to me. So if I'm going to approach a sales executive to have a conversation about developing the talent on his team, number one, I've got to find an effective way to get him to pay attention to me and be willing to invest just 10 or 15 minutes on just an initial discovery call. Not a pitch, not a promotion, but if I can ask the right questions in the first 2 or 3 minutes, this executive will know who I am, where I'm coming from, and that I've got the chops to pull this off. Right? It's some salespeople think you demonstrate your brilliance through what you say. I happen to believe you demonstrate your brilliance through what you ask. And so that getting that first conversation and having the proper first conversation, that really kind of determines the glide path from there on out. And,
I kind of bring it back to we're all, reptilian brain driven. It's anywhere from 3/4 to 9/10 of our brain power is all based off of survival and protection and our own best interest.
Right.
And I think salespeople tend to be a little bit closer to the 90 because that there's a hammer over their head. How do you deal with managers that are focused on the dashboard and the KPIs versus the revenue?
Very carefully.
Let me ask you a question. When Salesforce or CRM in general became dominant, like 10 years ago, did you see a major shift in the profession?
I saw a shift. I don't know if I'd describe it as being major, but there are a lot of great CRM tools out there today. There's a lot of people using CRMs properly, but by and large, most of my experiences, most CRMs are full of crap.
Yeah. And mandated so too,
mandated so, right?
Yeah.
And if we really look at the history behind the CRM, my hypothesis would be that it was not that CRMs were not designed from the ground up to be a tool for salespeople.
Absolutely not.
They were designed from the top down because executives wanted to have more visibility into what was going on. And so your boss's boss's boss designed a tool that was going to benefit him and then jammed it down your throat. And then we scratch our heads when salespeople don't embrace the technology, they don't use the technology, and they think it's a huge pain in the keister. Well, duh. We set ourselves up for exactly what we got.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work to be overanalyzed and micromanaged based off of a pie chart that the manager's looking at, as opposed to, really engaging with the reps to understand what are they up against, what's working, what's not working, how do you fine tune it and make the job fun again.
Yep.
And that I saw that shift, and I really didn't like it, because all of a sudden what mattered was more about what was in the CRM than what was coming in at the end of the quarter.
Right.
And I think that has gone a little mad. Now people are making AI decisions off of that data. And what I saw was the inside partners of mine were just filling in whatever the manager wanted to see.
Yeah.
And getting a little dangerous when you do that, because now the company, and we're in like the last month of the quarter where I call it the forecast meltdown, because management's now looking at scrubbing it, and they're like, Is this in procurement? No, exactly. I sent the quote a month ago. It expired. I should give them a call.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a very commonplace kind of experience.
Yeah. And how much of your work is on the prospecting side versus like the latter end of the sales cycle? Where's your passion lie? Is it getting into new accounts?
Well, it's getting in. It's funny because I think the early stuff is what I'm probably the most passionate about. You get a lot of phone calls that, hey, we need help with closing, we need help with the negotiating. To me, those things are typically set up by what happens earlier in the sales cycle. So if you really understand how to create value, if you understand how to build the right kinds of relationships, if you've gone through an effective discovery, if the customer understands the pain point and sees the ROI, things like closing and negotiation become, nobody's going to beat you up. It's like, look, you guys have got a $10 problem. I've got a $2 fix. Why in the world wouldn't we move forward? But there are some sales executives that think, hey, it's really all about that stuff that happens later on. So I guess, if anything, Brian, I like to focus on the things that are earlier rather than later.
Yeah, and I see there's a huge market for that. And I think some people make the mistake of if they can get that 15 minutes and they get them on the phone, that is now a deal. And I'm like, well, no. You got them onto the lot, and maybe you can get them into the car to take a ride. But you're still a long way from having them give you a check and you give them the keys.
Yeah, it's one step at a time.
Yeah. And where do you see the profession going? I don't know about you, but ever since I got into it, everybody had a doomsday opinion of it. And I was like, there's probably, 100 or 1,000 times more salespeople today than there were when you and I got into it?
Yeah. There are. But I think there will always what I will tell you, Brian, is you show me somebody who can tell a compelling story. You show me somebody who's willing to do the research. You show me somebody who understands what the art of follow-up looks like. You show me somebody who can plan and conduct an excellent sales conversation, whether face-to-face or over the phone. You show me somebody who can put together a compelling presentation. Show me somebody who has got the chutzpah to ask for the business. I think they're going to do well today, tomorrow, next month, next quarter, next year, and on into the future. I don't think that fundamental skill set's going to go away.
No, I don't think so at all. I think it's actually going to increase. And I see, unfortunately, a lot of companies get acquired because they can't scale that.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's a little bit too focused on commission expense versus revenue generated.
Exactly.
And that's a major difference.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that'll ever change. I think people have now become disillusioned with marketing automation. I think we're going to touch on the point where they're becoming disillusioned. Although I love sales automation and I use quite a bit of it, but in the wrong hands, in the wrong way, it doesn't do you much service.
That's exactly right. I think you can actually go backwards.
Yeah. But if you really know how to use social, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, podcast, and you really can get your message, the one-to-many that we all desire.
Exactly.
What would your advice be to somebody who's just starting in sales and, is kind of lost or doesn't know who to follow or what to think, or they hear all these different messages? What would you say the top 3 things that you would tell them to do?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think you need to find the people in your organization who are the eagles, and you need to start spending time with them to see what they're doing. Doesn't mean that what they're doing is going to work for you, but you need to see, if somebody else has already figured out a trail to the sale, go figure out what that looks like. That'd be tip number 1. Tip number 2, Brian, there's this little website called Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Start reading. You read 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. At the end of the year, you'll read on average 22 books. You show me a sales professional who's read 22 books on selling, I'll show you somebody who understands the game. So read. And I mean, there's a lot of really good sales books. There's a lot of really crappy ones, but that's, you gotta kiss a lot of pigs to find the prince. So don't be afraid to embrace and say, okay, I've read so-and-so's book. I don't agree with this, this, and this. Great. So now you know what you don't agree with. So tell me what you do agree with. So follow the eagles, spend some time reading, and then just do it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes new salespeople get caught into this ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim, ready, aim. You got to start firing some shots and start getting some calibration.
And that's it, because I've got, a large audience, and I hear the people like, oh, I listened to all your podcasts, listened to your book, read this, did that. And, okay, so show me what you're doing. And then they stall. And I'm like, well, do you not have a standard way of doing it? Or can we talk through it? And they go, oh, it depends. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, that's the hard part. And how about as far as like taking feedback? I'm sure you must run into this all the time, that you get the, I know what I'm doing, even though I'm not succeeding.
Because I've been doing this for such a long time, I see it, but I don't get that a bunch.
No?
No. I think I've got I think people have used the word snarky to refer to, if you want to go sideways with me, if you want to go toe to toe, I am more than happy. Yeah. I am more than happy to get in the ring with you. But what I prefer to do, if you're so damn good, why don't we have this conversation on your yacht? Or if you're so damn good, why don't we do this on your jet? So I think, to be good as a sales trainer, to me, it's like running a 12-step program. And the first thing we have to do is we have to get the individual sales reps to believe they have a problem. Because if I show up and say you suck, you're not going to believe me. If anything, you're probably going to fight me on it.
Oh, yeah.
But if I can demonstrate to you in the first 15 or 20 minutes of a workshop that you're not nearly as good as you think you are, then I've got a fighting chance of getting inside your head and getting inside your heart.
And just to accept that there could be a better way, and you could be better. I mean, what athlete, what any other profession doesn't practice, doesn't look for ways of becoming better? When you look at like Amazon and Jeff Bezos, it's like that's the constant beating drum. With Ray Dalio and principals at his hedge fund, he's looking for feedback from even the most junior people.
Yep.
To really test what he calls his meritocracy of ideas. But in sales, we tend to get to that A-, B+ player level at a company and think that we're knighted with this now talent. But we're not. It's something that we have to practice. Surgeons have checklists. Architects have checklists. Airline pilots have checklists. But in sales, let's see how it goes. Well,
I posted something on LinkedIn this week, and I said that if you work on your sales skills 4 times a week for an hour each time, so that's 4 hours, that's 2% of your entire week. Some people emailed me back and said, well, wait a minute, though. If I'm working an 8-hour day, blah, 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 and it's like, okay, that's your first mistake. Is I'm talking about you as a human being get to pick and choose where you invest your time. Yes. Right? And whether you want to improve your craft or whether you want to lay on the couch and watch SportsCenter or go for long walks on the beach, I mean, we are all responsible for our time. So my point on this LinkedIn post was that, look, if you would just work on your skills 4 times a week for an hour, that's 2% of your entire week. In the entire week. Now, why wouldn't you invest 2% of your time to improve your prospecting approach, to improve your messaging skills, to improve your follow-up, to improve your presentations, to improve your objection handling, your ability to make money and leave a legacy for your kids. And so my whole point was, next time you don't have time, you need to refer back to this post, because we all have time. We just choose to do different things with that time.
That's exactly it. And there's no better ROI than investing in yourself instead of Bitcoin.
Yeah. At the end of the day,
you're the asset, right?
I can't control what's going to happen to Xerox, but I can control what's going to happen in my future if I work on me.
Excellent. Hey, I really enjoyed this conversation, Tim. Where do people go to connect with you, learn more about you, and learn about your work?
So the easiest thing to do would be hit up the website, www.timwackel.com. It's TIMWACKEL. Or pick up the phone, give me a call at 214-369-7722.
Hey, Tim's a great guy. That was a great conversation and a lot of fun. So make sure you check out the ebook over at discoverorg.com under resources. It's moving the sales performance bell curve. And the idea is to really understand the differentiators between the people who are having a lot of success and some people a little bit less, And we can blame for prospects, the quality of leads, having a bad day and everything. But it really comes down to, really connecting with people and understanding the world through their eyes. And to get back to that, hey, the summer's coming up. This month's going to be over, this month being June. I don't know when you're listening to this. It's June, 12th. I'm recording this and posting it. But what's going to happen if you haven't worked a summer before in sales is that July, all of a sudden things stop. In most industries, unless you're in the resort industry, what happens is people start going on vacation. The two biggest weeks of vacation, at least in the U.S., the first 2 weeks in July. Usually in EMEA, it's the month of August, never mind the week. And what happens is we either forget this or we overlook it, and we start to think that the economy is just stopped. So I want you to have that conscious in your mind about these 2 months. Now, during these 2 months, you can either go crazy, take them off, get frustrated, or what you could do is start one of my courses. It's the perfect time. Why? Because you're going to have time to focus. I'm going to be working. I'm working all summer for you. Not taking a day off, not one. And I'm going to have office hours. It's going to be on the Friday, every other Friday, and I put it in the course. And basically, we get onto Zoom. I answer your questions, and we go through everything in the course that you have a question about, give you examples, give you feedback, converse about what's working, what's not working, how to make things better. And the idea is that during these 2 months, you will get super good so that when Labor Day is over here in the U.S., all of a sudden, it's Christmas again, what I used to call Christmas in September, because all of a sudden, all the Q3 business gets done in those 3 weeks. But if you're not prepared, if your pipeline's not there and you don't have the technical wins in place and you don't have the business justifications done up, the proposal ain't going to count. You have to understand how companies buy. So where do you find out about the course? You just go to b2brevenue.com, and up at the top there's a tab for training, and just click on the first link. Will bring you to all the courses. I've got a couple of free ones there, one on LinkedIn profiles and one on how I use AI to just crush my pipeline. So we got a lot of good stuff coming out of nudge.ai very shortly. So there's a course up there on them. The coupon code for the Nudge course is the word nudge. How simple is that? So don't bug me about it. But connect up with me on LinkedIn. I really appreciate everybody's listening. And tell a friend about the brutal truth about sales and selling. I'm really here to help you crush your number here in 2018. The world of sales is changing so fast. We got to stay on top of it. The idea behind the courses is that it's just not a video course. And it's not one-on-one either. It's one-to-many. But what you get to do is crowdsource other people's experience and get feedback on what you're doing, and not just sit back and, just tell me what button to push. That's not what sales is. Sales is a profession. It's a skill set. It's a strategy. It's all of these things put together, and people try and make it just one thing, just hustle and grind. And there's so much more to it. And the fun of it is when you become really good at it. It's once you get this base level of confidence in it, and then you build from there, that's when the fun really happens. So check out those courses, and you get office hours. So you get 25 hours of consulting that comes along with it on these office hours. So you can submit your questions. I answer all the questions during office hours. So don't expect me to answer it right back. But, you get, and if you go through the office hours, you'll see what other people are facing, what's happening, and what they did to solve it. And people are having enormous success. Go back and see the Ron Massey interview. I think it was in April. Was it April or May? You'll see it. Just search for it, Massey. And you'll understand exactly the enormous impact that the course can have on people. And first, understanding how companies buy. Second, building a process, a system, so that it isn't a mystery. Most people look at it as a mystery, and they think, once I find the secret and the silver bullet, I'll be fine. But there is no secret. The secret is the system. It's the strategy and your skills on executing the strategy. So check it out, and we'll see you during the course. Please tell somebody about the podcast. Connect up with me on LinkedIn. Share some of my content on LinkedIn so I know that you're out there. Thanks for listening.